Thank you. So I have a fear of public speaking and microphones and heights. So this is the trifecta phobias happening right now. So for those of you who may be unfamiliar with the Community Social Planning Council of Toronto, we are a nonprofit community organization engaged in research, policy analysis, community education, and development. We work on issues of social and economic justice with the aim of improving the quality of life for all residents in Toronto. So I'll just briefly talk about some of the work that the Council has done around these issues. So first we have the Toronto Community Services Resource Guide. And now this guide was about in partnership with Davenport Perth Neighbourhood Centre, the Status Campaign, and the Don't Ask, Don't Tell Immigration Campaign. And it is essentially a directory of agencies and organizations in the city that people without status can access safely, such as food banks, legal advice, counseling, shelters, etc., as well as provides important information such as one's rights and things to be aware of when trying to access services in the city that would be relevant to this population. We used an online survey, we used an online survey as well as spoke to agency staff in compiling this guide so that we could identify which agencies in the city do provide services to non-status people and that fulfill certain criteria, such as, one, people are not required to divulge their immigration status, or need to provide such documentation as a prerequisite in accessing the programs, and two, if such information is collected, that it is kept strictly confidential. While the guide was originally intended to be used by non-status residents themselves, what we found was that many frontline agency staff have found it to be an extremely useful tool as well, because it allowed community workers who work with this population to know where they can refer people to get services that they need, which before was a very big challenge. Now, it has been in high demand since its release, with nearly 500 copies distributed, along with numerous downloads on our website. And people are still requesting copies to this day, which I believe speaks volumes to the urgency and need for more safe places for people without status to get services and to maintain an adequate standard of living. Now, we are currently embarking on a second edition of the guide, which will hopefully be released near the end of the year. It will include updated information, additional agencies and organizations throughout the city will be added, as well as a more extensive online version with maps to each agency's location. So look out for that. The guide is currently available on our website. It's available in different languages. And I also brought copies with me, so you can feel free to pick one up. I didn't have time to put it under your chairs, so you could do like an Oprah. You get it now. Lastly, in June of 2008, the Council released a report entitled The Right to Learn, Access to Public Education for Non-Status Immigrants. So this project was developed in response to the campaign by No One Is Illegal and other advocates calling on the Toronto District School Board to adopt a Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy after the incidents of April 2006, where 4 children were apprehended by immigration enforcement on school grounds. Now, provincial law states that all children can enroll into public schools regardless of their immigration status. However, anecdotal evidence from community workers, legal clinics, and advocacy groups were encountering many families who had been denied access solely due to their immigration status. So what we wanted to do was collect some of these stories and document the barriers that non-status immigrants had been encountering. So some of the key barriers we identified were that schools were still inquiring into a person's immigration status, requiring them to provide immigration documents. There was also the lack of information, as parents did not know about their rights in regards to education, and even fear of just going into a school and enrolling their child, and then issues around safety once their child was attending school. Now, these interviews that we did with parents and youth were based primarily on experiences before the TDSB adopted their students without legal immigration status policy in 2007. So in addition to this report, we also conducted a very brief follow-up survey with schools to assess how well the board had implemented their policy a year later. So we contacted about a dozen TDSB schools to inquire on what a person without status would require in order to enroll their child. And what we found was that approximately half of the schools did not know how to handle these cases. And there were also discrepancies from school to school as to what documents a person needed to bring in. So proving that the board had failed in communicating their own policy to their administrative staff, and that there still needs to be broad outreach conducted to communities to inform non-status immigrants of their rights. It also took the TDSB more than a year just to update the admissions section of their website to reflect their new policy. And this was only done because the Stock Community Food Center voiced this concern, and so we connected with them and got the school board to update their website. And this was also only done with the help of the student trustee. So I think if school boards were run solely by students, I think things would move much faster. Incidentally, we also sent our report to all the trustees at both school boards, and none of them have so far responded to our request to meet and discuss these issues. We did, however, get a call and had a meeting with Kathleen Ling, Minister of Education, and she's been very sympathetic and very understanding, and she's committed on working with us on these issues and on ensuring every child's right to an education, as this is becoming especially problematic in other jurisdictions outside of Toronto. Additionally, through our interviews with parents, we found that community agencies and workers were a crucial resource for some of these families, not only to inform them of their rights, but also to act as advocates in case any problems arose. So this was simply even just writing a letter or acting as a reference. So there's many things community workers can do. And just as a side note, both of these projects that we did were funded through the city's Access, Equity, and Human Rights Grant. So any of you who are interested in developing your own research or projects around these issues could definitely look for them for funding.